Ottis Elwood Toole was an American drifter who was convicted of 6 counts of murder. Like his companion Henry Lee Lucas, Toole made confessions he later recanted, but which resulted in murder convictions. The discrediting of the case against Lucas for crimes in which Toole had offered corroborating statements created doubts as to whether either was a genuine serial killer or, as Hugh Aynesworth suggested, both were merely compliant interviewees whom police used to clear unsolved murders from the books. Toole received 2 death sentences, but on appeal they were commuted to life imprisonment. He died in his cell from cirrhosis, aged 49. Police attributed the murder of Adam Walsh to Toole on the basis of recanted statements. Lucas had backed Toole's confession to the Walsh murder, claiming he had been in possession of the victim's severed head. Early life. This section relies largely or entirely upon a single source. Relevant discussion may be found on the talk page. Please help improve this article by introducing citations to additional sources. Ottis Elwood Toole, sometimes misspelled Otis, was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. Toole's mother was abusive. Toole claimed she would dress him in girls' clothing and call him Susan. He was often designated as suffering from mild mental retardation, with an IQ of 75. In the documentary Death Diploma, Toole claimed he was forced to have sex with a friend of his father's when he was 5 years old. He felt he knew he was gay when he was 10, and claimed to have had a sexual relationship with a neighborhood boy when he was 12. Toole dropped out of school in the 9th grade and began visiting gay bars. He also claimed to have been a male prostitute as a teenager, and became obsessed with gay pornography. Toole was first arrested at the age of 17 in August 1964 for loitering. Much information on Toole between 1966 and 1973 is unclear, but it is believed that he began drifting around the southwestern United States and that he supported himself by prostitution and panhandling. While living in Nebraska, Toole was one of the prime suspects in the 1974 murder of 24-year-old Patricia Webb. Shortly after, he left Nebraska and briefly settled in Boulder, Colorado. 1 month later, he became a prime suspect in the homicide of 31-year-old Ellen Hallman, who was murdered on October 14, 1974. With many accusations against him, Toole left Boulder and headed back to Jacksonville. In early 1975, Toole returned to Jacksonville after drifting and hitchhiking through the American South. On January 14, 1976, he married a woman 25 years his senior. She left him after 3 days. After discovering his homosexuality, Toole said during an interview his marriage was a tactic meant to conceal his true sexuality. Murders and imprisonment. In 1976, Toole met Henry Lee Lucas at a Jacksonville soup kitchen. On January 4, 1982, Toole barricaded 64-year-old George Sonnenberg in a boarding house where he was living in Jacksonville and set the house on fire. Sonnenberg died a week later of injuries he sustained in the fire. In April 1983, Toole was arrested for an unrelated arson incident in Jacksonville. For that crime, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. 2 months later in June, his accomplice Henry Lee Lucas was arrested for unlawful possession of a firearm. It was then Lucas began boasting about the murderous rampage orchestrated by the two. At first, Toole had denied involvement but later began backing up Lucas's confessions. Lucas also backed Toole's confession to the murder of Adam Walsh. Journalist Hugh Aynesworth and others investigated 4 articles that appeared in the Dallas Times Herald. It was calculated that Lucas would have had to use his 13-year-old Ford station wagon to cover 11,000 miles in 1 month, i.e., around 370 miles per day, to have committed the crimes police attributed to him. Lucas became widely regarded as a compliant interviewee who was used by police to clear up unsolved murders that he had not been involved in, aided by Toole giving false statements in collaboration. During Toole's trial for murdering George Sonnenberg, Toole claimed that he did not light the home on fire and only signed the confession so he would be extradited back to Jacksonville. After his incarceration, Toole pleaded guilty to 4 more Jacksonville murders in 1991 and received 4 more life sentences. Confessions. On October 21, 1983, while imprisoned for 2 unrelated murders, Toole confessed to the 1981 murder of 6-year-old Adam Walsh. In 1984, Toole confessed to 2 unsolved Northwest Florida slayings, including one of the I-10 murders. During an interview, he admitted to killing 18-year-old David Shallert, a hitchhiker he picked up east of Pensacola. Shallert's body, bearing 5 gunshot wounds in the left side of the head, was found on February 6, 1980, approximately 125 feet off I-10's eastbound lane, 5 miles east of Chipley. The second confession involved the death of 20-year-old Ada Johnson. Toole confessed that he shot her in the head on a road outside of Fort Walton Beach after kidnapping her at gunpoint at a Tallahassee nightclub. Murder of Adam Walsh. 27 years after the 1981 murder of Adam Walsh, authorities officially named Toole as the likely killer. Toole claimed to have picked Walsh up in a Sears Mall parking lot. Toole said he offered him candy and toys and that Walsh came willingly. Walsh soon wanted to go home and began crying. Toole said he then punched him in the face. Walsh started crying more, and according to Toole, he began to wallop Walsh, knocking him out. Toole eventually pulled over in a rural area and raped Adam for 2 hours, then decapitated Walsh with a machete. He drove around for several days with Walsh's head, forgot about it, and once rediscovering it, tossed it into a nearby canal. Police somehow lost his impounded car and its blood-stained carpeting, hindering their ability to proceed with the investigation. Hollywood, Florida Police Chief Chadwick Wagner said Otis Toole had been the prime suspect all along, but went on to admit that although Toole's case was weak, he could have been charged during the original investigation. In response to the naming of his son's alleged murderer, John Walsh stated, "We can now move forward knowing positively who killed our beautiful little boy." Quote, "The decision was finally reached once Toole's niece told John Walsh that her uncle confessed on his deathbed in prison that he had murdered and decapitated Adam Walsh." The book Frustrated Witness, written by former Miami Herald writer Willis Morgan, examines the Walsh case and cites circumstantial evidence that suggests Jeffrey Dahmer may have killed Adam Walsh. At the time of Walsh's murder, Dahmer was living a short drive away in Miami Beach and working at a sub shop where he had access to a blue van similar to the one seen leaving the mall after Walsh's disappearance. A number of witnesses reported seeing a man looking like Dahmer at the mall talking to young boys. When interviewed about Adam in the early 1990s, Dahmer repeatedly denied involvement in the crime, even stating, "I've told you everything. How I killed them, how I cooked them, who I ate. Why wouldn't I tell you if I did someone else?" Quote. Death in custody. On September 15, 1996, at the age of 49, Otis Toole died at Florida State Prison of cirrhosis. As his body went unclaimed, he was buried in the Florida State Prison Cemetery. In popular culture,